Airport staff expelled Mahira O'Neill, but regretted everything when her father Shaq arrived. A clear sky covered Los Angeles International Airport that morning. It was a place where travelers rushed back and forth, dragging rolling suitcases and holding coffee cups in their hands. At 17 years old, Mahira O'Neill, known among her friends for her tall stature and determined stride, stepped out of a black SUV. She was dressed simply in sweatpants, a hoodie, and sneakers. Still, she carried a quiet confidence, an air inherited from her famous father, Shaquille O'Neal. Few recognized her at first glance, especially among the hurried crowd. She was heading to a youth basketball camp in Chicago, where she hoped to improve her skills and prove that she wasn't just Shaq's daughter. She wanted to earn respect on her own merits. With a slight flutter of nerves, she clutched her ticket and passport tightly and entered the terminal building. At the check-in counter, there was only a short line, a relief. A bored-looking employee named Tina waited behind the desk, glancing at her watch. Mahira stepped forward and handed her documents over. Tina barely looked at them before glancing up at Mahira's tall figure and casual clothes. "Where are you going?" she asked in a monotonous tone. "To Chicago," Mahira answered softly, keeping calm. "I have one bag to check in." Tina rolled her eyes, looking at the ticket suspiciously. "This is a business class seat," she remarked coldly. "Yes, that's right," Mahira nodded. Tina's lips tightened. "Are you sure? Those tickets are expensive, you know?" Mahira's posture tensed, but she forced a polite smile. "I know. It's mine." Tina blinked, unconvinced. "We can't just let anyone claim they have a business class seat. Let me see your ID again." Mahira quietly handed her driver's license over. Tina examined it for far too long before finally exhaling. "All right, everything seems to be in order. Gate C22. Boarding in an hour." She pushed the boarding pass across the counter. Mahira's cheeks burned. She tried not to dwell on the condescending attitude and composed herself. She dropped off her luggage and proceeded toward security. There, the next obstacle appeared. The TSA lines were filled with typical families with strollers and business travelers glued to their phones. Mahira lined up and placed her backpack on the tray, but halfway through the scan, a TSA officer called out, "Miss, please step aside. We need an additional inspection." She frowned slightly and stepped aside politely. "Is there a problem?" "Just a random check," the agent said, though his eyes scanned her with suspicion. He called over another officer who began rummaging through her bag. They pulled out her sneakers, a rolled-up t-shirt, notebooks, and basketball gear. "Basketball?" the officer asked with a half-smile. "Yes," she murmured. "I'm going to a camp." The agent nodded, still unsmiling. "Next time, arrive earlier. This'll take a while." Mahira's chest tightened in frustration. She crossed her arms and endured the prolonged search. Finally, after disassembling and scanning her belongings for explosives, they let her go, 20 extra minutes of hassle for no clear reason. She adjusted her backpack, fighting the urge to ask if they always picked big-built teenagers at random. As she approached gate C22, her phone buzzed. A message from her dad. "Shaq, how's everything going, sweetheart? Need anything?" She replied, "All good, Dad. Thanks." She didn't want to worry him. She wanted to handle this on her own. But the problems weren't over. At gate C22, she found several airline employees waiting, among them a man in a blazer with a name tag that read Charles, supervisor. He stared at her intently as she approached. Then he stepped forward, arms crossed. "Excuse me, miss," he said sharply. "We've received information that your seat may have been issued by mistake. May I see your boarding pass again?" Mahira handed it over, trying to contain her frustration. Charles examined it, frowning. "Business class is unusual for someone your age," he said, glancing at her casual outfit. "Are you traveling alone?" "Yes," she replied calmly. "My father bought the ticket." She hesitated, reluctant to name-drop her dad but feeling cornered. Charles shrugged. "The system flagged it. We can't let you board until we verify the payment details." "Flagged?" she asked. "I paid. I have the confirmation email on my phone." He raised his hand. We need more than just your word. Turning away, Charles spoke to another agent. Take her aside. The agent nodded and motioned for her to follow. Mahira's heart pounded. They led her to a corner near a closed coffee kiosk where Charles demanded to see the credit card, the phone with flight information, and matching ID. She complied, feeling more humiliated with each passing moment. Several passers-by stared, some even recording with their phones. Charles frowned. The cardholder's name is O'Neill? Yes, Mahira sighed. Shaquille O'Neal is my father. Charles blinked, and a mocking smirk formed on his face. So you claim to be Shaq's daughter? She stared, stunned. I'm not claiming. It's the truth. He shook his head. Kids make up all kinds of stories. Look, we can't accept this. I'll have to cancel your ticket. Mahira's jaw dropped. You can't do that. I have a valid reservation. He shrugged with a fake smile. We have the right to deny boarding if we suspect fraud. It's airline policy. He signaled the other agent. Escort her out. If it's legit, the cardholder can come in person to settle it. That was the final blow. The agent took her by the arm and led her toward the terminal exit. Mahira's eyes filled with tears of humiliation. She quickly pulled out her phone. Her father had told her to call if anything happened. Now was the time. She dialed. He answered almost instantly. Dad, she said, her voice trembling. They're kicking me out of the airport. They think my ticket is fake and won't let me board. On the other end, Shaq's deep voice rang with immediate concern. I'm on my way, baby. Stay where you are. She exhaled shakily in relief. They're taking me to the baggage area. Please hurry. The agent ignored her pleas and pushed her along until they reached a side exit leading to the arrivals area. People stared, some recording with their phones, unsure what was happening. The airport staff left her there, with the automatic doors behind her and no boarding pass. She felt humiliated, tears streaming down her cheeks. Then came the music, and with it, the unmistakable presence. The NBA legend arrived, wearing a casual tracksuit but radiating undeniable presence. People turned to look. A wave of murmurs spread. Shaq spotted his daughter and approached with firm steps, his towering frame imposing. Are you okay, baby? He asked gently, placing a massive hand on her shoulder. Mahira nodded, sobbing a little as she hugged him. Then Shaq turned to the staff, his dark eyes full of anger. Can someone explain why my daughter was removed from the airport? Charles, the supervisor, stepped forward with feigned composure. Sir, we had reason to believe her ticket was fraudulently purchased. She claimed you were her father. Shaq's eyebrows rose. Claimed? He repeated, looking from Charles to Mahira, who still, blushing, she told them who she was, and they called her a liar. Charles swallowed hard. These are procedures. We needed verification. Shaq's deep voice cut him off. Verification? More like she's been harassed and humiliated for no reason. Couldn't you check my contact info with a simple phone call instead of kicking her out? Is this how you treat passengers? The agent stammered. We have the right. Shaq's voice thundered with indignation. The right to discriminate? The right to call a young African-American woman a liar because you don't believe she can afford business class? My name is on that ticket. You want proof? Here I am. Let's be clear. The crowd had gathered, several people holding up their phones to record the tense scene. One by one, the employees realized the serious mistake they had made. They knew Shaq's reputation as a kind but firm figure, and the situation could turn into a public relations disaster. Charles tried to apologize awkwardly. We're very sorry, sir. Please come back in. Shaq crossed his arms, imposing. First of all, my daughter's flight leaves soon. Give me back. Too much attention. Too many stares from curious onlookers. Several travelers who had first witnessed Mahira's removal now watched her return with surprise on their faces, some whispering among themselves, others discreetly taking photos. The nearly 7-foot-tall giant walked with a determined stride, ready to clear up the misunderstanding as directly as possible. As they entered, the group of employees who had previously questioned her grew visibly nervous. The towering former NBA player now eclipsed them with his mere presence. Supervisor Charles and the rest of the staff tried to keep their composure, but their unease was obvious. Trying to make amends, the staff led them to a special service counter away from the main crowd. There, a higher-ranking manager was waiting, a man around 50 with graying hair and a seemingly more professional attitude. His name tag read Mr. Henson. The moment he saw Shaq and Mahira, he hurried over to greet them with a mix of respect and concern. "Mr. O'Neill, Miss O'Neill, please accept our sincerest apologies for this misunderstanding," he said in a deep, polite voice. "Our goal is to provide quality service, and I regret that the opposite occurred in this case." Remaining calm but with visible irritation in his eyes, Shaq waited for the man to finish speaking. Mahira, still overwhelmed by embarrassment and tension, stayed silent, feeling her heart pound. She didn't want all that attention, but at the same time, she was relieved her father was there. "I've given clear instructions to have your boarding pass revalidated immediately," the manager continued, pointing to an employee typing quickly at a computer. "We also want to offer you access to our premium security lane to avoid further delays." Mahira forced a small smile of thanks, while Shaq nodded. The air was filled with a mix of respect and nervousness. Employees who recognized the legendary Shaquille O'Neal were doing their best to repair the damage, aware that their airline's reputation could be at stake if things escalated further. As the employee finished revalidating the pass, Manager Henson took the opportunity to offer another heartfelt apology. "Mr. O'Neill, Miss O'Neill, believe me when I say we're deeply troubled by what happened. We will thoroughly investigate and speak with the staff involved. I assure you, this kind of incident will not happen again." Mahira gave a slight nod, still feeling a knot in her stomach remembering how she had been kicked out of the airport. But at that moment, what she wanted most was some peace, and not to miss her flight. "Thank you," she replied in a faint voice. Just then, a few passengers who had recognized Shaq timidly approached, cameras in hand, trying to photograph him from a respectful distance. However, the serious expressions of the staff and the tense atmosphere made them give up on asking for an autograph. Shaq seemed to notice them too, but stayed focused on his daughter. With Mahira's boarding pass revalidated, a uniformed assistant directed them to a fast-track security line. Before heading there, Shaq turned to look at Charles and the other employees who had originally confronted Mahira. He didn't raise his voice, but his gaze alone made his displeasure clear. "Treat her with respect next time, please," Shaq said in a deep tone, adding nothing more. Supervisor Charles, clearly affected by the reprimand, lowered his head and muttered an inaudible apology. Among the murmurs of witnesses, Mahira closed her eyes for a moment and took a breath. She couldn't erase what had happened, but at least now things were heading toward a dignified resolution. As they passed through the priority access, many curious eyes turned their way. Mahira walked a few steps behind her father, trying to go unnoticed, but that was impossible next to someone so tall and famous. With each step, she heard whispers. "Did you see Shaq? What happened?" But she tried to keep her mind focused on reaching the basketball camp, where she wanted to shine because of her talent, not because she was a star's daughter. At the security checkpoint, this time without any issues, they finally reached the boarding gate. There, a group of airline employees immediately came to meet them, their faces showing guilt and eagerness to make things right. They offered everything from access to the VIP lounge to cabin upgrades, saying it was the least they could do. Shaq, his face serious, waved them off. "No need for that. All we want is a sincere apology, and for my daughter to travel in peace." Manager Henson, who had rushed to catch up, spoke firmly. "That's right, sir. We truly regret what happened, Miss O'Neill." He turned to Mahira. "We assure you will investigate this. We want you to trust that it won't happen again." Mahira sighed, still feeling the weight of the humiliation, but also some relief seeing things finally being resolved. "Thank you," she replied in a softer tone. "Just treat people better, please." That was the heart of it for her. Not luxury, not special treatment for being someone's daughter, but simply not being judged by appearance, clothing, or age. No one else should have to go through what she had just endured. Just before boarding, Shaq pulled her into a hug. His huge hand rested gently on her shoulder. That gesture, despite everything, brought a bit of normalcy back to her chaotic day. "Text me when you land. Okay?" he said with concern, trying to smile a little. "Don't let this ruin your camp. Show them what you can do." Mahira nodded, her eyes full of gratitude. She no longer felt so alone or vulnerable like she had just minutes ago when she was thrown out. Now, thanks to her father, she was finally stepping onto the flight she needed to keep chasing her dreams. "Thanks, Dad. I'll make you proud," she whispered and tried to smile at him. She finally boarded the plane. As she settled into her seat, she noticed a few curious glances from other passengers who had likely seen the commotion. Some whispers were heard, but she took a deep breath. Her heart slowly began to calm. Clutching her backpack and her determination, she prepared to enjoy the trip. During the week at the basketball camp, Mahira focused more fiercely than ever. All the tension from the incident was transformed into energy on the court. Every shooting drill, every dribbling drill, every play she ran with her teammates had a renewed purpose: to prove that she was a valuable player in her own right.